The Chicago Bulls have spent years stuck in the worst place in the NBA, the murky middle, not good enough to matter and not bad enough to rebuild. But this past season, something quietly changed. They finally got younger, so what does their cap sheet look like now, and have the Bulls actually picked a direction? Let me break it down. Here's the plan. First, where this team actually is, because the roster looks very different than it used to. Then, the cap reality, the contracts that help and the ones that hurt. Then, the flexibility they have, and the one decision that finally forces them to commit to a direction. The roster facts are verified, the dollar figures are projections. Let's start with the team. This is Game is Culture. Quick thing before we dig in, if you like cap breakdowns that show the real math instead of guessing, subscribe. It's free and it helps a ton. Now, where Chicago stands. Where they stand. Let's be honest about the record first. Chicago went 31-51 with a bottom 10 offense and a bottom 10 defense. That's a bad team, full stop, but it's a different kind of bad than before. The old Bulls were a capped out, veteran heavy team going nowhere. This version is young, cheaper, and finally building around players with a future, which is a much more hopeful kind of bad to be. And the two pillars are clear. Josh Giddey turned into a nightly near triple-double, 17 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists a game, a genuine lead playmaker. And Matas Buzelis emerged as the ascending two-way wing every rebuild needs, 16 a game with real shot blocking for a forward. A creator and a young two-way wing, both cheap, both with upside. That's an actual foundation, not just a collection of veterans. And there's a new voice leading it. Chicago brought in Thiago Splitter as head coach, a fresh start that signals the franchise knows the old way wasn't working. New coach, young core, a roster reshaped by a flurry of trades. The pieces of a genuine pivot are on the table. The question this summer is whether the front office finally finishes the job and fully commits to the young direction. The cap reality. Now the books. The good news is that Chicago's core is cheap. Giddey, Buzelis, and the young supporting players are on team-friendly money, which keeps the Bulls well clear of the tax and the aprons. The complication is a couple of veteran salaries that don't fit the timeline, most notably an underwhelming, expensive deal on the wing that's become a drag on the sheet without producing like it should. And then there's Nikola Vucevic. He's still a productive veteran center, 16-9 a night, but he's the wrong age for a team this young, and that makes him the most valuable trade chip on the roster. A productive big on a reasonable, shorter contract is exactly what a contender wants at the deadline. So Vucevic isn't a problem, he's an asset, the kind a rebuilding team converts into youth and picks. Add it up, and Chicago's flexibility is solid but not spectacular. They project to have the full mid-level exception, around $14.5 million, and the ability to open real cap space if they move a veteran salary or two. They're not a destination with a max slot, but they have the tools to add youth and reshape the roster. The flexibility is there. The direction is the open question. And there's a draft dimension that makes the youth path even more appealing. Finishing low isn't just about losing games, it's about the lottery, and a high pick in a deep draft class is a franchise-altering asset. The exact kind of cheap, high-upside talent Chicago has been missing for years. So embracing a developmental season doesn't only protect the cap sheet, it puts the Bulls in line for the type of cornerstone a 31-win team simply cannot sign or trade for on the open market. In a rebuild, the pick is the prize, and you only get it by being willing to be bad on purpose for a while. The decision they keep dodging. Here's the thing the Bulls have avoided for years and can't anymore. They have to pick a lane. Either fully commit to the youth movement, trade the veterans for assets, and accept a developmental season aiming for a high pick, or re-sign the vets, chase 40 wins, and settle back into the play-in mush. There's no prize for being the 11th best team in a conference. Free agency is where they finally signal which it is.
And the two lanes look completely different. Commit to youth, and the cap plan is simple. Move the vets, open space, collect picks, and keep the books clean for the young core's future raises. Cling to the middle, and you spend the flexibility on stopgap veterans to win a few more meaningless games. One path builds something, the other just delays the reckoning. The cap sheet should follow the philosophy, not the other way around. Quick halftime note, if you want every team's cap broken down like this all summer, subscribe. It's free and it helps. Now, the one move that would prove they finally get it.
And the clearest signal would be how they handle Vucevic. Trading him for young players and picks would tell you the Bulls have fully accepted the rebuild and are done chasing the middle. Re-signing veterans around him to win 40 games would tell you they still haven't learned the lesson. One transaction, more than any free agent signing, will reveal whether Chicago has finally chosen a direction or is doomed to repeat the same cycle. There's also a hidden cost to indecision that the standings hide. Every year Chicago spends hovering around the play-in is a year their young players don't get the heavy minutes and high usage that actually develop them, because veterans are eating that runway. So clinging to the middle doesn't just waste cap space, it stunts the very players the future depends on. For a team this young, mediocrity is actively harmful, not just disappointing. So grade Chicago's flexibility, and it's a solid middle of the pack, with real upside if they get decisive. They have a cheap young core, the mid-level, and a valuable trade chip in Vucevic, enough to meaningfully reshape the roster. What's holding the grade back isn't money, it's the franchise's long history of refusing to pick a direction. The tools are fine, the clarity is the thing they still have to find. Where could I be wrong? If the front office is under pressure to sell tickets and win now, they'll spend the flexibility on veterans and stay in the middle, which is the trap, but an understandable one. And the exact space depends on which veteran deals they can actually move. But the path is obvious. Chicago's flexibility only matters if they finally use it to commit, instead of to tread water. So that's Chicago's cap reality. A young core, a new coach, real tools, and one franchise-defining question. Will they finally pick a lane? And next video, the realistic free agents and trade targets that fit the direction they should choose. Tell me what you'd do below. And we are so close to 1,000 subs, so subscribe to stay up to date.